And welcome back to the Cedric Black podcast. I'm your host, Cedric Black. Thank you once again for showing up. And if this is your first time visiting, a very special thank you to you for taking the time out of your busy schedule, out of your busy day to check me out for the first time. So if you're new to the podcast, I always try to start off every show by introducing myself and just telling you just a little bit about what the show is about, what the podcast is about. What I do on this podcast is I take a deep dive into what I call the unseen and the unheard impacts of noise pollution on our mental health and our emotional well-being. And today, on this week's episode, we'll be looking at something that I believe is a growing conflict between what I call noisemakers, those things, the sources of the noise, and noise seekers. Call those the people that seek refuge away from the noise. So we're looking at a growing conflict between the two and how that battle affects our mental health. First, let's talk about the definition of noise pollution. I know that I give you this definition every week, but just in case this is your first time hearing the term or if this is your first time listening, I'll just try to give you a quick explanation of what it is. Quite simply, it is unwanted or harmful sound. A sound that you don't want that disrupts your mood or disrupts your day in some way. It disrupts your peace. And it's directly connected to sources like traffic and industrial activity and recreational events like concerts outside or clubs. And even there's household noise, just noises around your house. If you think about your air conditioning unit or maybe a neighbor outside, there's someone mowing the lawn. I always use that as an example because that's one of those things that's a common source of noise pollution for myself. Now, historically, noise pollution has grown a lot, and it continues to increase because our cities and our neighborhoods keep growing. We have areas where there's constant construction because new buildings are constantly being erected, and we have an increase in traffic. So we have car noise, horns blowing, and there's also just the busy nightlife. If you live in an area where you're close to a downtown area, it's a busy area. The nightlife scene is really busy, and on top of that, it's noisy. What happens is that when you combine all those things together, it just amplifies this issue that we have. The issue is noise pollution, and I believe that it's just at an all-time high right now. I don't think that it's definitely reached its peak, but I think that if I revisit the show and do another episode next year, I can say that it's at an all-time high again because all those things that I just mentioned continue to increase. The noise levels continue to rise. If you think about a city like New York, or even a place like Beijing, like China, they experience noise levels that are far beyond the safe limits. Well, these limits that are set by the World Health Organization. So this is just a constant bombardment of noise. And what happens is that they can have a serious consequence on our health. And that's what the show is about. How this noise affects or the impact that it has on our mental health. So if you're wondering, or you might just say, yeah, it's noise, but what's the big deal? We're surrounded by noise every day. And that's just it. That is the big deal. Because when noise becomes excessive, it's more than just annoying to us. It can really cause serious effects on our health. For example, If we're continuously exposed to loud noises, what happens? Our stress can increase. Some of us can develop anxiety, or if we have anxiety, it can increase our anxiety. And some people, it may even cause depression. What happens is our brains and our bodies in general, we need that quiet time to rest and recover. Just like anything, once it's overloaded, it needs to refresh itself. Like a computer, if your computer is constantly running and it never shuts down to reboot itself or refresh itself, it will have problems over time because everything is constantly going. The information is constantly being processed, and there's never any time for that computer, or in our case, our brains and our bodies, to recover. And it can take a toll on our mental health and our emotional health because our brain is constantly trying to filter out all the noise, while also at the same time helping us to maintain our stability in some way. To put this into better perspective, imagine if you try to sleep with a loud party going on. Your neighbors, they're throwing a loud party. You can't do it, it's tough. Because if it's nighttime, you find yourself, you may be tossing and turning at night. And after a while, you start feeling frustrated, now you're irritated. Now imagine that happening every day, if that's part of your daily life. Not just the party, but the noise itself. Because we can substitute the party with any type of noise. And if it makes you feel a certain way, if it makes you feel frustrated or irritated, irritable, that's the word. If you become frustrated or irritated by that, you start speaking out, you start feeling grumpy because it wears you down. I mentioned some of the sources that cause noise pollution, but now I want to talk about the noisemakers. Like, who are the main contributors to this noise pollution? Because we have on one side, I call them the noisemakers, but these are just the sources of the noise pollution. But just for the sake of this episode, let's call them the noisemakers. These include industries and traffic, the nightlife areas, construction projects that are going on around us. They see noise as a necessity because those activities are usually essential for economic growth and urban development, but they also generate a lot of noise. And on the other side, we have the noise seekers, or those people that seek to get away from the noise. These are the people who crave that peace and quiet in their lives or in their environment. Now, some of them may live in a noisy area out of necessity because that's just all they can get, or it's closer to their job, or whatever the reason is. It's out of necessity that they have to live in these areas. But deep down, they really desire that tranquility. For people like that, constant noise is more than just that, their inconvenience at the time. But for them, it's more than that. That's a major source of some type of discomfort for them. It's a conflict. I believe it's a conflict because it's really not there's no easy solution for it. But we get to understand both perspectives, and which is, I believe it's a step one. It's step one towards finding a balance of what can be done. But just understanding that, and we can look at both sides, because whether you're someone who is constantly surrounded by noise, and you're striving to find some peace, I think that this will make more sense. Because I haven't really looked at it this way before, where we have two sides. there's two sides of the noise. Now, the noisemakers, that's just the term that I call those industries that create the noise. Like I mentioned, like the transportation systems and the nightlife places, or even neighborhoods, residential areas, because they're always under constant development. But why do these sources generate so much noise? For example, if we don't focus on the machinery that it uses, yes, they're designed to be noisy, I guess, because I guess that's what it takes. They need that power to get the job done on whatever they're using. But why do they generate so much noise? And what I found that it's a matter of economic benefit. For example, like cities that need a lot of ongoing construction for development and traffic, that's just an unavoidable byproduct of living in what the real estate people call a thriving urban area. That comes with it. So if you take the case of like a nightlife street in the downtown area, what I mean by that is like a hot spot. There's probably a hot spot for entertainment in most places. So that hot spot for entertainment may be good for business or good for that area economically, but could probably be a nightmare for nearby residents who live close because of the noise. Because on the flip side of that, those people who crave the quiet environments, they often live in urban areas out of necessity, like I mentioned before, because that's what they can get, or that's what they can afford. Whatever their reason is, they're not there really by choice, because unless you're a person that craves that environment, who likes the business, who likes the noise, then it works for you. But if you're one of those people that crave, that yearn for the quietness, peace and quiet, that's a struggle for you. You live there, you accept it, but that's not where you really want to be. But if you're a business or you're benefiting from that, the noise is necessary for economic growth. The more that I think about it, the more that I understand. I understand both sides. Not that I'm saying that I'm picking a side or that I agree with anyone in particular. I just understand. From a business perspective, if you are a company or you're in the seat of, you wear the hat as a noisemaker, and for you that means an increase in your business, your revenue. I was driving in my neighborhood. There was some construction going on in the street, one of the main roads, and it's right in front of someone's house. Me as a driver just passing through there, it was noisy. There was probably 10 or 15 seconds of me passing by. The further I drove away from it, the less the noise was, so it didn't bother me. But if I'm living at that house where the construction is taking place and it's happening all day, it's a problem for me, because the noise makers have disrupted my noise-seeking peace and quiet. But it's a necessary noise at that moment, because the road needs to be repaired. And I can't really speak for the person that lives in that house, but this is how they probably feel, even though I'm just guessing. They understand that it's necessary, but like I've mentioned before, if it's a prolonged sound or the noise just continues to go, then it becomes irritating. Because if they're living in that house and they hear the jackhammers and the road crew out there working, if I work night shift, now I come home in the morning and I have to sleep all day. but I can't because right outside of my door is this noise. How am I feeling? I'm trying to find a way to sleep, and what if I have to grab some headphones to try to sleep? That's uncomfortable because now I can't sleep in my normal sleeping position. Everything is disrupted because of the necessary noise. Now, the road being repaired has a positive impact in the end, okay? But going through the process to getting there is the pain. It's like walking through fire to come out. What was the term for a diamond? You wipe away the coal, the burnt coal, and to get the diamond. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's the way that it has to be looked at. The noisemakers, their priority is economic growth and development. And to them, that takes precedence over our acoustic comfort, so to speak, or the comfort of the nearby residents. Because construction projects bring jobs and infrastructure improvements. That's a plus. But what comes with that, they also introduce prolonged periods of disruptive noise. A lot of us move to certain neighborhoods when we're looking for homes. If we're working with a realtor, we usually say that we're looking for a nice, quiet neighborhood. And for the most part, they are quiet until the necessary noisemakers come in. So would we rather trade off the temporary noise in order to forego the construction? Or would we rather have that peace and quiet and a busted up road? Because if our road is busted, we may complain now. Someone needs to come and fix this road because there's a pothole and needs to be repaired. But in order for that road to be repaired, noise is necessary. And I think that's just a clash that's not going away. But as far as the noisemakers, can they really develop quieter jackhammers or tools, or can we really make traffic quiet, or can we make the nightlife quiet? I was reading an article that they were talking about, and I read it was an article that kept popping up for several weeks. It was talking about a place in Nigeria. It was a town in Nigeria where they shut the churches down because of how loud it was, because of the excessive noise. And I thought that was really interesting, how the noise in some places can cause your business or whatever you have going. Government can come in and regulate it and shut it down. They closed the churches because it was so loud. This episode really gave me something different to think about. I don't want to say that we should champion the noise, because in some cases it's necessary. It's part of what the noisemakers have for us. It's connected to certain industries that are so necessary. And again, I'll use a lawnmower as an example. It's a necessary tool to have because we can't go out to our yards and use a pair of scissors to cut our grass. Lawnmowers happen to be loud. The equipment itself is necessary, but it just happens to come with noise. But it's good that noise is temporary. That's the positive, because it has to stop. A lawnmower is not going to run forever. You can't mow your lawn forever. Even if you had a full tank of gas, it just sat there and let it run, allowed it to run. It still can't run forever because eventually it's going to stop. So that's one positive way to look at the noisemakers. Unless I guess you're in a city like Las Vegas. I've never been there, but they say it's the city that never sleeps or something. I believe that even if you're in an area like that, it's probably a designated area where everything happens. I've seen pictures and video of Las Vegas, but it looks like it's just a designated entertainment area, and there's no houses, there are no residents there. But even if it's a city that never sleeps, for example, if there was a residence there right next to it, it still has to stop at some time. It still has to stop. I believe that. But just for those of us that live in regular areas, I live in the neighborhood, but I have to travel to the entertainment hotspot, so to speak. It's not right in my neighborhood. I have to travel to that. So if I'm around it, I already know that it's there, so I can prepare to accept it. I already know what I'm going into, so I can either prepare to go with headphones or earplugs if I need them, or choose not to. But I already know what's there when I go, so I can better prepare. But I have to go there. It's not with me all the time. And I know that it's only going to be for this period of time. If I don't really like it, I can just say that I know it's going to be a little noisy, but I can deal with it for 2 hours. Then I'm coming back home where it's quiet. So thanks for listening. I will see you on the next episode.